you can either speak to it or you can read it. This time is entirely your own. But what would be great would be if just a couple of minutes before the end, you would pause to see if there's any questions in the room so that we can have a discussion if there's still time left. But you don't have to if you don't want questions. You can keep going. This is your time. So I'll briefly introduce everyone in the room. In no particular order, we have Penny Simmons, who's a National Party MP. We have Tony Severin, who's an ACT MP. We have Teresa Ngobi, who is a Labour MP, as am I. And now is your time. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay. My name is Oscar Stace. I am a member of People First Wellington. I am also the member of the Parliamentary Advisory Reference Group. We meet 4 times a year to advise on how to make Parliament more accessible for staff and visitors. I am wearing a sunflower lanyard, which is an international sign for hidden disability. They are now available for visitors.
To read any of the messaging is Rachel Boyack had her hand up. Okay, I think we're in quorum with the 4 of us present. Yeah. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou tēnei te mihi o te wā. We are here today hearing from the in regards to the accessibility legislation, and the important thing for us today is we have 4 submitters. We will be live streaming this process. 2 of us are in the room, and others are on, and 3 are on Zoom. So what we will do is just introduce ourselves verbally and describe where we're sitting. So I'm Angie Warren Clark, but we can just call me Angie. I'm the chair, and I'm sitting in the centre of the room, and I'm wearing black and polka dots. So that is me. Welcome. We'll go now to Jan.
Kia ora koutou, ko Jan Logiahau. I'm the Green Party spokesperson for disability issues and subbing in for this bill. I've got kind of grey blonde hair at the moment. I've got a blue mask on and wearing a blue spotty brown top.
Which is very nice. Thank you. Can we go now to the next? Perhaps we'll go to Anahila.
Oh, kia ora koutou katoa. I'm Anahila. I'm wearing black and blue. And I am on Zoom.
Thank you, Anahila. Jackie. Oh, you're on mute.
Good morning, I'm Jackie Dean. I'm also on Zoom. I'm coming from my office and I'm looking forward to today. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jackie is wearing a rather fetching blue and white, I think, stripy top by the looks. Thank you, Jackie. And we also have Rachel Boyack, who is currently off camera. Rachel.
Morena koutou. I'm Rachel Boyack. I'm the MP for Nelson. I do have my camera off at the moment, just so I've been having some issues with my laptop. So I'm just on Zoom in my office in Nelson.
Thanks, Rachel. Okay, so we'll commence with our first submitter. So we have the National Council of Women of New Zealand coming to us by Zoom. So we're just For the benefit of those listening, I also have Liam to my right. Liam is one of the clerks of the House, one of the clerks of the committee, and he's helping support us today. Hello, Raewyn and Bernice. I'm Angie Warren-Clark. I am the chairperson of Social Services Select Committee. Thank you very much for your well thought out submission, which I've come to expect from the National Council of Women, to be fair. Perhaps if you could commence by introducing yourselves and perhaps a descriptor of what you're wearing. And then you have 15 minutes with us to talk to us. If you'd like to leave time for questions, I certainly have some for you. That would be great. So, ngā mihi nui kia korua, welcome. We're in your hands.
Morena koutou, ko Raewyn Stone tōku inga. I am very pleased to say that I'm wearing a black spotted top, so I must be the height of fashion because I noticed that several other people were wearing black spotted tops as well. I'm Raewyn Stone, and with me is Bernice Williams of Te Koniheru Wahine o Aotearoa, the National Council of Women of New Zealand. And also I believe that one of our members, Laurie McNess, is valiantly zooming in at 5 a.m. from Perth on a very special birthday for her. But as a disabled woman, this bill is so important for her. NCWNZ represent about 200,000 members, made up of 60 affiliated organisations, individuals and 13 branches. Our written submission was based on our policy and consultation with members specifically on this legislation. We've been making submissions on the human rights of disabled New Zealanders since the early 1970s, and the Convention on the Rights of Disabled Persons is one of the international frameworks in which we develop all our policy, advocacy and campaigns. And I'm very aware there's an interpreter, so please, interpreter, raise your hand if I'm going too quickly. We're very aware of the discrimination experienced by all disabled New Zealanders, but especially Wahine Māori, Pacific disabled women, young disabled women, and LGBTQI disabled people. And I note that Laurie, who I've introduced, has joined us. Excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. We were therefore very excited by the establishment of Whakaora, Ministry of Disabled People, and for the potential for this bill to be landmark legislation that really would transform the lives of tangata whakaora and disabled people in Aotearoa, New Zealand. And we do acknowledge the government's expressed commitment to accelerating progress on accessibility. However, we consider that the current bill will not achieve this as it, excuse me, pardon me. The current bill will not achieve this as it lacks a rights-based approach and powers and mechanisms for setting, regulating and enforcing rights and standards in a systematic and effective way. And we note the concern from the recent UN report from the committee monitoring the convention about the slow progress in Aotearoa on improving accessibility, and specific concern that this particular bill will not achieve that progress. It is no longer credible or acceptable to rely on the current approach of education and polite persuasion, which the government acknowledges is not working. In the short term available, I will not concentrate in detail on what we support in the bill, like the commitment to te tiriti and gender balance on the committee, or the many flaws and omissions in the bill, which are set out in our written submission. I just want to summarise our main points. The fundamental flaw of the bill is that it does not include rights, standards, regulation, and enforcement. Most of the bill is about the membership and logistics of setting up the Accessibility Committee, and you don't need legislation to do that. The powers of the committee are very limited. It is merely advisory without any independent power of investigation, dispute resolution, monitoring, or enforcement. The committee appears to be very much under the control of the Minister and Chief Executive. They will determine what information that the committee can ask for, approve the work programme, and appoint the technical advisory committees and their terms of reference. As Laurie, one of our disabled members, put it, control and coercion have crept in and turned promising legislation into tokenism. Well, what would we like to see? Our first preference is for the bill to be deferred and for extensive engagement with disabled people to co-design legislation that addresses the flaws in the bill. An alternative, this could be along the lines of option 4, which is supported by the Access Alliance and many other disability organisations, but rejected, and would include the establishment of an independent body similar to a commission or Crown entity with powers of regulation, enforcement and investigation. An alternative is for the bill to be substantially revised and strengthened, with the Accessibility Committee having greater powers, resources and independence. But a substantial revision like this would also need proper engagement and co-design with disabled people. And both options would involve a model where the Accessibility Committee or alternative entity would have the following powers. Independent power of investigation, development of enforceable standards with targets, timeframes, and we note that Hamilton, Queenstown and Lakes and Auckland councils are supporting this, as it would give local councils some teeth and some leverage. The power of monitoring compliance with clear and meaningful consequences. There's no apparent consequence for non-compliance in this legislation and the current practice. A complaints and dispute resolution process. The Human Rights Act process does resolve some cases of individual discrimination satisfactorily, but it has not brought and cannot bring systematic change for disabled people. And additionally, it places an unreasonable burden on individuals and is in fact a contravention of the UN Convention, which requires states to take responsibility for removing barriers. And finally, the timeframe for review. Clause 25 of the bill proposes a 5-year review for the legislation, and actually in the cabinet paper it was 3 years, which is the usual standard. We think that 5 years is far too long a period, especially if the legislation has not been effective, and recommend that the 3-year timeframe be reinstated. So in conclusion, we consider that in its current form, the bill is a real missed opportunity for robust legislation to bring the transformation change the government acknowledges is required. We urge the committee to take the opportunity to defer the bill, to undertake genuine and extensive engagement with tangata whaikaha and disabled New Zealanders in order to co-design a rights-based legislative framework that will empower disabled people and bring about the transformational change they are entitled to. Ngā mihi. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Raewyn. Bernice, and welcome, Laurie. Do either of you have anything that you would like to say before we launch into questions? And happy birthday, Laurie.
Good morning, everybody. I'm the note taker here, so I am happy to continue in that role and just echo everything that Raewyn has said. Thank you.
Thank you. And Laurie, did you want to add anything? No, you're on mute. That's better.
I just said that Raewyn already said it so well. There's just nothing more to add. I can say that DPA and supports National Council of Women's stance. We support the DPA stance. We would like the bill deferred. Great,
thank you. And actually, I'll start with the first question, and it actually is to you, Laurie. In the submission, talk about one of the membership of the Accessibility Council, and you talk about there not being or not wanting to have the parents of, and part of that was around saying that disabled people can speak for themselves. I'd just like you to explore that a little bit. I thought it was a useful comment, but certainly for my experience with my family member who is unable to advocate for himself at the age of 22 and will never be able to advocate for himself, his parents are required to do that. And I'm just wondering what you think the balance should be in the setup.
I've thought about this so hard and talked about it for so long with so many people, including parents, that I really respect the way that they support their children that can't, and children who are adults now that can't.
Oh, your screen's frozen.
Can't speak. Can you hear me?
Yes, you might. It might be best if you turn the screen off, and then your connection might be a little bit better.
Let me do that. I couldn't get it up. Oh, stop video.
Yes, we can still hear you. That's good.
A friend over here in Perth, her child is an adult now, and Dylan actually can communicate for himself, but other people do not understand the way that he communicates. And Joanna says they are Dylan's translators.
Yes. Yep.
I think that that parents and service providers have a role to play in the disability sector, but not as disabled people's voice. And
Yes.
the disabled people that do speak out for disabled people, not when you listen to the voice of disabled people, it's not every single disabled person that's communicating, but we can speak on behalf of our community, and we can consult with the groups that have an investment in the disability sector. I suppose they're like lobby groups that want to be heard, but service providers and family members, when I've been to hui's for decades now, tend to be there without disabled people speaking with them. They are always speaking for us, and they have totally different priorities to us. Funding seems to be top of the list.
Yep.
And for us, it's our rights being respected, interdependence, those sort of things.
Right.
Bringing that into the front line, of speaking for us, takes away what we want, what we are trying to say, and what we're trying to achieve.
Thank you.
When men have a role, we don't let men speak for women. We don't let Pākehā speak for Maori. Please just let us speak for ourselves.
Thank you, Laurie. That is an awesome explanation. That's really helped me understand your point that was being made. Thank you. Just wanting to check to see if there are any other questions from members. We're nearly at time. Well, it appears that there isn't. I once again have to acknowledge the extensive and good work that you have put in as National Council of Women for this work. I appreciate the comments that have been made. We are listening, and accordingly, I think having as well an additional a voice of someone coming from Perth for the day has been very helpful as well. So thank you so much. Just leaves me now to wish you good day and happy birthday, Laurie.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Ngā mihi nui.
Ngā mihi. Right, we now have Max Marshall in person. Max.
Hi there.
Hi, Max.
Hi.
So Max, my name is Angie Warren Clark. I'm not sure if you can see on the screen up there the other members who are participating by Zoom.
Yep.
And we also have Jan Logie in the room. Jan's got her mask on.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so we have you we're running 5 minutes late, so we have you for 10 minutes. So we have no notes for you, Max, so
Sure.
We're completely in your hands. If you'd like some time for questions, please leave us. I'll let you know at 5 minutes if that's helpful.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair and panel, for giving me this opportunity to speak this morning. My focus is on access to money and support involving last wills and testimonies for disabled people.
I did read your notes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have read your submission, actually. My apologies.
In making this submission, it is my goal to focus attention on disabled persons of whom face a set of circumstances whereby at a time of grief, they are required to fully understand and handle personal position within a family where state settlements are being awarded, often in competition or variance with their able-bodied siblings. Well, the current law regarding the last will and testimony of a person suggests what should happen when it comes down to the rights and needs of the disabled person. And in this context, there is often a profound lack of appreciation of their needs. An example of this is the person suffering from dyslexia being given a legal statement to read and sign at the same time. Equally, it seems that there is no best practice advice given to officials administering wills, and there seems to be a complete denial of the existence of sibling rivalry in these situations that tends to favour those within these families of groups within a family who believe that they are more deserving. It is my observation that those siblings that have done well in life and are therefore better off in financial terms take it upon themselves to influence family members as to why able-bodied family members' needs are more legitimate than the rights and needs of a disabled person. The presumption or misinformation in these circumstances lie often on the basis of or premise that a disabled person does not need any extra help or support sourced through private family means because there are social supports available. Therefore, it is argued it would be unfair to give recognition to any special needs of one specific individual person within the family group. I'm not a lawyer or a legal executive. I do not have a raft of specifically targeted suggestions as to what needs to change specifically in order to correct the situation. I believe that after the necessary statute alterations that have been made, it must be the automatic right of a disabled person to receive full legal aid if they wish to contest a will or any other family business. I hope that the full acceptance of this submission will help New Zealand forward into a position of a first world nation of human rights and disability recognition and support services in line with the International Convention of Rights for People with Disabilities.
Thank you, Max. Angie Rowan-Clark speaking. I just want to say my apologies. I have read your submission. It was actually very fascinating. It hasn't come up before, and I think it's potentially a little out of the scope of the bill, but it is potentially a piece of work that the accessibility group will do. And I thought it was particularly worthwhile you putting in about the fact that equity issues, equity, you know, we have this equity balance in the family court
Yes.
or in our wills
Yes.
that says issue or children must equally share.
Yes.
And that isn't necessarily the reality for some families.
Yes.
There needs to be better provision made. So thank you for that. I've really enjoyed your submission. So we have Jan, who has a question.
Kia ora, thanks, Max. I found this a really useful submission as well. And I wonder two things. So question one, do you know whether there have been conversations about trying to fix this problem already? I'll let you answer first.
Yes, I'm not sure whether other groups have gone and had conversations about it. I wrote to Chris for when he was the Minister of Justice, and I was wanting to do something. I was asking him whether he could look at doing something else for me. I wanted to go and question the right of I'll question the situation where a person can be an executor as well as a beneficiary, because I think that's a clear conflict of interest. And though I think convention says that, well, you're meant to be separate those and act in those, and perhaps there are situations where it's necessary or expedient, but definitely I think that the potential for conflict, the disadvantages and the far outweigh the gain. But he wasn't. He'd passed the government had passed a piece of legislation on to do with trusts and people and trustees, but it was not intended to change the underlying law concerning wills and trusts.
Can I just supplement on that? Yeah, sure. So well, do you, Max, do you think that it would be useful as a suggestion to always have a professional executor as well as whoever else?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, the lawyer who's doing the will should be the executor.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
And my second question is, how confident do you think that if the committee's having to choose between looking at accessible housing, building code changes, transport, communications as just examples, that this would get through that filter to be a priority?
It has a very low priority in comparison with the issues that you brought up. Those issues undeniably are huge and massive. And you know, if I was a policymaker, I'd be wanting to go and perhaps prioritise those more than something like this.
But you are clearly telling us you think this should be done anyway, right?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Max. We've come to the end of our time. I don't see questions from anyone else in the Zoom function. So all that remains is to thank you very much for your submission.
Thank you.
Very useful. Thank you. Right, we have a Cheryl Welby by Zoom. No Cheryl? No Cheryl. Okay, so we now come to Susan Williams. Susan, are you all right to come to the table yourself? So this is where Liam is supposed to ask you if you need assistance.
Cheers.
Any water?
No, thank you. Is there a mic or something? There is a mic right in front of you.
Right in front of you.
To the left. Oh no, sorry, my left is wrong. Right. Just there. Yeah.
Do I need to move it?
And
No.
that's perfectly fine. We can hear you well. Thank you. Right, Susan, welcome. My name is Angie Warren-Clark. I'm the chair and I'm directly in front of you and I'm wearing black and white polka dots, sort of. They're a little bit silvery polka dotty. And I have to thank you for an amazing submission. Thank you. I'm going to go round the room. We have Liam here who has just assisted you. Liam is to my left, so you're right. I always get those confused. One of our clerks. And then we have, and I'll leave her to introduce herself.
Kia ora, Jan Logie, Green MP. We've met before, and I'm wearing a short sleeve, a different coloured polka dot.
Yes.
We seem to be on theme today at the table.
And we also have to our right, now, how do we pronounce your name correctly? Femke, who is also a clerk in the room. So we'll start now with Anahila, and just the others will introduce themselves to you as well.
Brilliant. Don't worry too much about descriptions and stuff. More important to talk about legislation.
Cool, all good.
Kia ora, I'm Anahila. I'm based in Papakura, Labour MP.
Kia ora.
And good morning, I'm Jackie Dean. I'm a National MP for Waitaki.
And we also have Rachel Boyack. Oh, she's come on screen. There we go.
Oh, kia ora, I'm Rachel Boyack. I'm the MP for Nelson. I've just been having some laptop issues this morning, but I'm with you here now.
Kia ora.
So first and foremost, your submission. My goodness, I was extremely frustrated just reading your experiences, never mind about you living them. So
It's a fraction.
Yeah, I'm
Fraction
sure
of
it is.
Fraction of being a disabled Kiwi.
So what you've got 10 minutes to talk to us. If you'd like to give us some opening comments, leave some time for questions. It's up to you. We're in your hands.
Thank you so much.
Ngā mihi nui, welcome.
Kia ora, and kia ora for that. My name is Susan Williams. My pronouns are they, them. I am functionally blind, autistic, chronically ill, mentally ill, ADHD, but I'm also non-binary, aromantic and asexual because, hey, everybody needs a hobby. Essentially, I'm honestly just an ordinary Kiwi. This is the first time I've submitted to a select committee. I think there are probably a lot of us that this is our first time, and it's been a roller coaster. So I've seen what was put forward in the campaign that led to this, and it was so hopeful because I thought that New Zealand was finally going to get legislation that would change our day-to-day lives, and frankly, this is some of the most disappointed I've ever been in my life. You don't have a lack of advice. There are hundreds, thousands of disabled people giving the government advice every day. There are organizations specifically set up to give the government advice from the perspective of disabled people. We don't have a problem with the amount of advice. We have a problem with it not being taken. Overseas, there are actual bills, and like you were saying, an advisory committee. What do I say to my local cinema when they say, sorry, what's audio description? Do you mean the headphones for the deaf? Do I say, well, there's a committee in Parliament. You should really go talk to them. Like, how is that? I know there is some change for the goodness, but what we need is, as everyone has been saying, enforceable, strong legislation, because this is not good enough. And there are people here telling you exactly how to fix this, and who've have backgrounds in legislation and all of this information. I'm just an ordinary Kiwi. I'm just trying to live my life. So in my submission laid out a tiny fraction of what I go through every day, just being an ordinary Kiwi. Just this week, I've been talking to Ngangahau because I'm in a house that meets 80% of my access needs, and I'm terrified to even tell them it doesn't meet the rest, because what if I end up somewhere worse? It is scary being disabled. I was helped to the table. Wouldn't it be amazing if there was a tactile pathway? I went to the bathroom on the way here in Parliament that is written down as being accessible. There is no braille signage on your toilets.
That's a good hint.
So you can go and you can put braille signage on your toilets, or you can go and put braille signage on every toilet by making it a requirement to meet the reasonable needs of disabled people in New Zealand. You can go and change that. Like, I would like you to think for a moment, how long from here, if you were in this room, how long would it take you to go to the toilet, to find a toilet? I was at Armageddon yesterday. I had heaps of people tell me how brave I was to be a nerd at a nerd convention because I was a blind person in the stadium. The stadium is a concrete circle. There are staircases. If I veer off the path, I walk into them at head height.
Yeah.
There is nothing underneath for my cane to catch. And that under current legislation is legal. It can't be. I'm angry. Millions of people are angry all over the world because this is just not okay. I went to Armageddon yesterday and I found the main stage because it talked. I couldn't find the exit. I couldn't find the bathroom. It took me an hour to find someone to help me find the bathroom in one of our city's largest venues. That is not okay. I was scared I wouldn't make it to the select committee today because the taxi company that does mobility taxis was 20 minutes late with no explanation because they are not legally required to actually come and pick me up. I have to thank people because they're walking me around chairs that they put on our pavements. This is not good enough. I hope that you'll think about your lives, and if it took you an hour to find a bathroom, what would you do in your day? How would you plan it? If you didn't know if you were going to be able to get a ride somewhere today, would you even have the job that you have? What if you were campaigning and you were late to your own campaign? What if you were late to your parliamentary debate? What if you couldn't make it today? I'd like you to think about that, and I would welcome any questions. Thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for your submission. Angie speaking. Just wanted to ask you a couple of questions about your submission. You've written a couple of things which I thought, well, actually your whole submission is really informative. A couple of things about, you talked about free taxis during COVID and how impactful that was for you.
It was.
And the other was around FPOS and how difficult FPOS has been for you if they don't have pay wave. So, I guess my question really is this: in terms of accessibility in this country, we know that it's terrible. I certainly have worked. My nana was visually impaired and unable to see it, so I would have to help navigate her around the city, and just the exhaustion of that for her and me. So I have a small insight into what that is like, and I guess the grabbing of people as well, and the touching of people, and the rules around touching and grabbing of people. I guess my question is, in terms of your experiences, so vivid and so descriptive, how do you see us building some of this into the legislation in a way that's meaningful?
It needs to be enforceable, and it needs to be both broad and have specificity. So I have nothing to take to a company. I can say, hey, the New Zealand government is a signatory on the rights of people with disabilities. Can you please not put EFTPOS machines with glass on? And they're like, yeah, okay, we hear you.
Yeah.
We care about all of our customers, but hey, we've got like a budget and a deadline. And what if the legislation said that was illegal?
Yep.
What if I could take them to court if I wanted to? What if they, in their planning and in their business case, had to meet legislation that said you must take, like, you must do this level of reasonable accessibility.
Yep.
You must meet these standards that a disabled person can come to your shop and reasonably expect to partake of your services. That a disabled person has a right to transport. That those making legislation in Parliament cannot take away access, because that's what's happened with this. The companies are taking away access that already exists. That cannot be legal. They need to be legislated to improve access.
Ensure that it's there. Yep.
There are, as I say, I'm part of an advisory committee for Wellington City Council. There are more people on that than would be on an advisory committee for the whole of government.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Like I say, we don't need more advice. Like, that's great. That's lovely. Have an advisory committee, but have legislation that they can enforce and refer back to when they are advising. So they can look and they can say, at part 3 of the legislation, it says that you cannot remove existing access.
Yeah.
So we can't pass this law because it would remove existing access. You can look at part 5 that says that you have to have reasonable physical accommodations for blind people and for wheelchair users and for people with assistance dogs. Say, you can look at that and you can say, I'm sorry, you can't put this in your building code because it's against our bill.
Thank you, Susan. We've got one more question from Anahila. Oh, 2 more questions. We're nearly out of time. Well, we are actually out of time.
As quickly as I can.
Yeah, Anahila.
All right, kia ora. Thank you so much, Susan, for your presentation, especially reminding us in terms of having Braille on our here in Parliament, if we are to be accessible, if we're considered accessible. My question really is the way you engage with this bill, how was it presented? Because your submission is that you're very insightful, you read the bill. How was that process for you? What technology did you use and what were we helpful?
It was a freaking nightmare. I did my best. I'm autistic and ADHD, and it was a word soup that I was listening to on a screen reader. I looked and read as much as I could, and then I went to other external sources that were basically summarizing it and went, oh, is that what they're saying? In terms of Braille, wouldn't it be great if Braille signage, at least on exits and bathrooms, like we have legislation that requires us to have exit signage, but not for blind people.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, again, legislate. And thank you.
Thank you. One more question, Jan.
Thank you so much. I guess you said in your introduction that this campaign that led up to this was so hopeful.
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether you think this is better than nothing or worse than nothing.
Honestly, I think it's worse than nothing.
Okay.
Because it lets the government say, look what we did. Look, we care. We did a bill. And it's like, you didn't do anything that's actually enforceable. If I had to pick between this and nothing ever, I think I'd pick this. But my hope would be that instead of this, or as well as, like, I think an advisory committee is a great idea, set one up, but don't make it our bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Susan. I guess the point to make there is this is not the end of the legislation. This is the beginning of the legislation, which then creates the entire framework. So
Cool. In that case, you're going to need to give your committee power to create legislation. You're going to need to have them self-governing, as other organisations have said, and you're going to have an end goal and a date. So this will lead to an accessibility bill legislation that will come out and be heard on this date.
Absolutely.
With these, like if you want to set up a group to create that bill, that's great, but this is not that bill.
Hey, thank you so much for your submission. Are you okay? Do you need someone to assist you out of the room?
If you'd like to help me pass legislation.
I could do that.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Because this building does not currently have rail signage or a tactile route, I will need assistance, please.
Okay, so
thank you.
Liam will come over and give you a hand. Okay, so we're now moving on to the Occupation Therapy New Zealand group by Zoom.
Yes.
Right, I see you, Renaldo.
Kia ora. Just waiting for the rest of the group to join, I
Okay,
believe.
no problem. We can we'll wait a couple of minutes. So we'll introduce ourselves while we're waiting for the rest of your team to come in, Renaldo, and if you could do the same. Apologies for a little bit of delay. We've been hearing some really interesting submissions, and I'm too fascinated to chair appropriately, unfortunately. So fail for Angie, but very interesting. So I'm Angie Warren-Clark. I am a Labourist MP based in the Bay of Plenty, and I am the chairperson. And I am wearing polka dots, black and white, sort of.
Kia ora koutou, I'm Jan Logie, Green Party MP, and I'm also wearing polka dots, but blue and kind of bronze.
We're not matchy-matchy today. So if we could have introductions from the rest of the team, thank you.
Kia ora koutou katoa, I'm Anahela, Labourist MP based in Papakura.
And good morning, I'm Jackie Dean. I'm the National MP for Waitaki, and today I'm wearing blue.
Kia ora koutou, I'm Rachel Boyack, the MP for Nelson from the Labour Party. I'm wearing a pink dress and I am on Zoom.
Right, well, ngā mihi nui kia koutou, welcome to you all. Thank you so much for coming. We'll get you to introduce yourselves, but before you do, I just wanted to point something out, and it may be an error on our part, but half of the first page of your submission, which I found so helpful, has been, something's dragged over the top of it. So I'd just like to acknowledge that the first page where you've put your notes and your table has commenced, I've been unable to read that, and the others will be the same. So we might ask if that could be perhaps resubmitted. Right, and with that, welcome to you all. A very good submission, really in depth, very useful in terms of your legislative analysis or the suggestions for changes to legislation. We're completely in your hands. Please take it as read, your submission as read, and please introduce yourselves, and then you have 15 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm Professor Clare Hocking, and next to me is Margaret Jones. We are both wearing dark colours, and the most pronounced thing in our picture is the red door behind us. So I will actually be presenting, but Renaldo, do you want to introduce yourself?
Renaldo Christians. I'm the Executive Director for Occupational Therapy New Zealand. I am wearing a dark blue jacket.
And we also have Tracey Harrington. Tracey, your microphone is still off, and Joy, your microphone is off as well. So Tracey and Joy were part of putting the submission together for us. They are both occupational therapists working in the practice world. Tracey?
Yes, I'm an occupational therapist, and I am wearing, I guess, white, more of a creamy grey white today.
And a blurred out background. And Joy?
Yes. Kia ora, I'm Joy, and I'm wearing sort of blue floral number today.
It looks like you're coming to us from your car. So welcome.
Yes, this is my office.
Welcome. All right, if you'd like to commence with your submission, thank you.
So a little bit of background for the committee that occupational therapy, Whakaora Ngangahau, is a registered health profession concerned with promoting health and well-being by enabling people to participate in the activities of everyday life. Across the profession, we work in health, disability, residential care, employment, education, recreation, housing, communication, transport, and retail sectors. So a very broad scope when we are thinking about activities of everyday life. While our roots are in rehabilitation, primarily with individuals and whānau, we increasingly work with organisations and committees. So we are representing Occupational Therapy New Zealand, Whakaora Ngangahau Aotearoa, which is a membership-based organisation representing about 50% of occupational therapists in Aotearoa. The association has a tūtiriti relationship governance model with shared leadership and responsibility by tangata whenua and tangata tiriti co-presidents. We take a human rights stance to ensuring full citizenship of all disabled people, including the removal of physical, attitudinal and legislative barriers that exist in society. So we would like to make 5 points briefly, and then open for questions. So our first statement is that we highly commend the intent and purpose of the bill. It's an opportunity for systemic change that can achieve so much more than our profession can achieve when we work individually with people and with groups, solving the same issues over and over again because there isn't the legislative basis to mean that barriers don't exist. And we're thinking there of things like housing modifications, which are very costly and could be solved through changes to the building code. Workplace accommodations for people with physical, cognitive and mental health issues that could be addressed in employment law, and access issues experienced by disabled children who want to participate in sports teams and clubs. So we note that the 2000 legislation which allowed them to go to local schools. So although that's not perfect and there are problems with it, they wouldn't be there without that legislation. One of the points that we wish to make very strongly is that we support the position of not defining what it is to be disabled and advocate against any move to place limits by defining who may experience access issues. The next point is that we strongly advocate for wording across the Act that aligns with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. For example, that disabled people have equal opportunities to full and effective participation in society rather than equal opportunity to achieve their goals and aspirations. One of the reasons for that is that participation is observable and measurable, where goals and aspirations are not, so that progress can be measured and over time. We also know that people modify their aspirations in relation to the possibilities that they perceive to be open to them. Because the opportunities available to disabled people in Aotearoa are not the same, that their aspirations are likely to be lower. And also that alignment with the convention would give the Act some teeth in that individuals could then take the government to the United Nations to make a claim that their rights under the Act are not being achieved. Our fourth point is that to truly accelerate progress towards a fully accessible New Zealand, the wording of the purpose of the Act needs to be more aspirational. So rather than progressively working towards preventing and removing accessibility barriers and growing accessibility practices, we want the Act to say simply to prevent and remove barriers and to implement accessibility issues. So while we note that the wording of progressively implement does align with the convention, we want our Act to be much more aspirational and therefore more hard-hitting. And that we felt that the purpose of the Act is missing something important, which is to make entities accountable for removing barriers and establishing accessibility practices. So, for example, even amongst our small group, we have experienced being invited in to assess a public building for access issues, writing a report, making recommendations, and absolutely nothing happens. Yep. So we want some accountability built into the Act. So those are our main points. We're very happy to answer any questions.
Great.
Or to let you know some of what was on that first page that you can't read.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we will. I can vaguely see something through there, but I am vision impaired, so I wasn't able to read it through the black.
Not through the black. Yes.
But perhaps if you could tell us, or actually, if it looks like it's a summary of recommendations, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I had a question just in terms of the membership of the committee. You've made some really strong recommendations there. Did you want, for the benefit of those listening or watching, to talk to that? Particularly, I like the suggestion of the co-chairperson, and I see you've suggested or recommended 2 additional members. Could you talk a little bit more about that and your reasoning?
We think that Aotearoa, is now in a place in history where new legislation should be absolutely in accordance with Te Tiriti Waitangi. We have trialled that structure within our own association, so everything is split Māori Pākehā, and any decisions and recommendations in moving forward have to reflect that structure. So, we understand that understandings of health are very different across Māori and Pākehā, that the concept of disability really doesn't exist and is going to be framed in very different ways, and that without structuring in that awareness that this bill, as other legislation, risks just continuing the inequities that exist, and particularly exist within any health context. And then let me just scroll down to where we were talking about 2 additional members. Margaret, can you remember?
Page 3.
Yes. Because the range of attributes that's set out within the bill is comprehensive, whether all of those attributes could be encompassed within the number of people. And in fact, if we were to look at that more radically, then we might be saying that the number and the range specified of expertise amongst the committee, rather than framing that as, up to a certain number of people.
Right, yes.
Frame that as a minimum, so that the committee can draw in, or the minister can draw in, as many people are needed. So, that needs to be balanced against the size of a group of people that's actually going to be workable. Yes. Because there's important and urgent work to be done. And it was the same thinking that led us to suggest that the term of office on the committee be 4 years rather than 3. We know that even at a parliamentary level, a 4-year term is mooted occasionally because of the complexity of the work that Parliament undertakes. The complexity of the work that this bill is addressing, again, is enormous. To give the members a longer time to figure out how to work together and to progress the work.
And what was it, my apologies, was it your submission that suggested that the members should be paid so that there wasn't a barrier to participation?
Yes. So a reimbursement system effectively is going to mean that anybody living in poverty can't participate in this committee because they don't have the money up front.
Thank you. Do we have a question from Jan? And if there's anyone on Zoom, if you could throw your hand up. Thank you.
I've got a couple of questions.
Go,
That's
Jen.
all right. Thank you. So the first one is, like, I'm interested in your suggestion around the language of accountability and building that in. And a lot of the submissions we've heard so far have spoken about enforceability. And I'm wondering whether you wanted to speak to your understanding of the difference between the two and how you landed on accountability as opposed to, or whether you'd considered enforceability or not.
I don't remember specific conversation about enforceability. I think enforceability maybe is easier to apply if you're thinking about the bill just addressing what ministries do. But we would absolutely see that city councils, organisations, schools, workplaces also need to make radical shifts. And I guess accountability really for us would call on reporting back what actually has been done and what has been achieved. So I guess we're not wedded to either term, whichever term is going to achieve that end, that things have to be done and they have to be reported back, and that there is, that the loop is closed.
A consequence. Yeah.
Can I just add to that? So I'm Margaret, and we were modelling two of the building code, which uses the word accountability and which does seem to have some legal teeth in terms of ensuring that what is required is carried out. So that was why we landed on the term accountability.
This is a follow-up from that, if that's okay. I'm not over the details of this, but I noted in the United Nations review of our progress on the convention, they spoke to the lack of progress around the 2014, I think, Building Act provisions, and whether that also included the language of accountability, because I think we're both wanting the same thing about actually getting something that will
have teeth,
ensure progress, not
not just report on it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Do you know?
As a group, we have plenty of experience that, advice can be given and then things don't change.
Okay.
And that there are too many barriers. So even to modify a house for somebody living in a government-owned house is almost more complicated than working with somebody with a private landlord. So, where is the shift? So if there was accountability about moving towards accessibility, but even better if we built houses that were accessible.
Universal design, absolutely.
Yeah, and the building code only addresses public buildings. It doesn't address houses. And yet that's, we spend a lot of money as a society, even on that issue in a year. So, and in fact, when the money runs out, the money that's been allocated, the wall goes up and nothing else is done until the next financial year.
Yes.
And there are mechanisms to make people ineligible, and that's not reported.
No, and I guess just the second question was around your reflections, and admitting I've got a concern that the priorities of this group, that it's quite a small number, and I've got a concern that actually agencies will stop doing the work that I would expect them to be doing, because things will get funneled to this committee and they'll only be able to look at a small number of issues at a time, and that they would only be issues that are approved by the minister as meeting the government's priorities. And that feels fragile to me.
Yeah. We did have debates about whether it should not just be the minister, but also people like the Disability Commissioner who were involved in the process of appointing people to the committee, but realised that that would be really out of step with what any other legislation says. And that the minister is the person given that responsibility. But yes, we were concerned that then the operation of the Act very much comes under the flavour of the government of the day, and where financial concerns, for example, and not wanting to put costs onto people that are building buildings or on businesses might really change the governmental will to appoint the right people and to support this committee in its work. So that was another concern that we had, is that the role of the committee is really prescribed, but to what extent does the ministry have to service it? And so the committee's ability to call for information is secured, but to have a workforce to integrate that, to word it the right way, is silent. So that effectively would be a way to hobble the work of the committee by just not resourcing them.
Thank you. We've really come to the end of our time. I absolutely appreciate this submission. Very thoughtful. Hopefully we will be able to see that first page.
Yes.
The other comment that I'll make is there is also, under a minister, it means that that minister is accountable to the community as well. So that's also, it is an additional mechanism. So questions can be asked of the minister if there is a failure to act. But look, we look forward to seeing that first page, and this is a very thoughtful submission. We will be going through this and looking at your recommendations very closely. Thank you so much for your time, and also for the work that you do with as occupational therapists. Certainly my experience with you all, and my niece is an occupational therapist, is that fabulous group of very, very clever and careful people. So thank you. Have a good day.
So as a final word, we're very open to staying in communication with you if you want to come back to us.
Thank you.
Contact Renaldo, we will appear.
Thank you, and we really appreciate it. Have a good day to the rest of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we're on the home stretch, people. We now have Amanda Bircher. Now, I don't have notes whether Amanda is coming by Zoom or in person. By Zoom, okay. If we could have Amanda admitted into the room. Hello, Amanda. I'm Angie Warren-Clark. I'm the chairperson. I am wearing polka dots today, black and white polka dots, and I am sitting directly centre of the room here in person. And to my left is Liam, who is one of our clerks, and I'll get the rest of the members to introduce themselves.
Sitting next to Liam is Jan Logie, that's me, for Green Party.
Kia ora, I'm Anahela. I'm in black and blue on Zoom.
Hi there, I'm Jackie Dean, and I'm wearing black and white. I also come in on Zoom, thank you.
Kia ora, Amanda. I'm Rachel Boyack. I'm the MP for Nelson. I'm wearing a pink dress, and I am zooming in from my office in Nelson.
So we have you for 10 minutes, Amanda. Take your submission as read, but you're welcome to speak to it as much as you like, but we also will have some questions for you if you'd like to leave some time, and I can indicate when 5 minutes is up if you like.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're completely in your hands. Thank you for submitting into this process. Ngā mihi nui.
Kia ora koutou. My name is Amanda Bircher. I am wearing glasses, a bright lippy and a kind of pale mottled top. I am here today submitting from the perspective of a person with a lifelong physical disability. So that's the perspective that I can speak from with the most confidence and understanding. I just wanted to say I do support the Accessibility for New Zealanders bill in principle. It's wonderful. It's something that we absolutely need, and are looking forward to seeing what it can do to assist the disabled community in New Zealand. However, I would like it to go further. And you probably hear this a lot today. So some of the concerns that I have with it as it stands is that there's limited powers for the Accessibility Committee and Whakaora. There's no enforceability or guarantee that any recommendations would be carried out. There's no timeline for changes, that the responsibility for identifying access barriers falls to disabled people, bearing in mind we're doing that on top of having to work and live and socialise and raise families in an accessible environment. And also particularly there's no standards or regulations for businesses and organisations that are actually willing to look at their spaces, how they operate. So the three areas that I would like to see added would be that the New Zealand-wide standards or guidelines for accessibility. I think this would be a great framework for people to work from. Otherwise, it's on individual companies and businesses and organisations to bring in consultants and the costs, whereas if the bill can highlight the resources needed, the specifications required, then they have a starting point. The other thing would be the enforceability for the recommendations of the Accessibility Committee and Whakaora, because as it stands, it doesn't guarantee that any recommendations will be actioned. So it's hard to see real change happening. And the other one would be dispute resolution. And not in a sort of penalty way, but more a space for people with disabilities and their whānau to go when they've kind of reached the end of their resources of what they can do to create change, a kind of space for support, promotion, education, sort of uplifting that view of disability in our society. And 25% of our population identifies as disabled, and that's quite a big proportion. And if we can accommodate and make spaces and businesses and employment accessible, that's a big part of our population that is helped. And I would like the bill to set guidelines for accessibility, to protect disabled people from discrimination and exclusion due to inaccessibility. And I'd like the bill to actually take some of the work off our shoulders. Because there are a lot of people, not myself, I'm new in this field, but there are people doing a lot of work, a lot of lobbying, a lot of starting conversations, pushing, guiding. Yeah, and so it'd be, if we have a bill that can outline a bit more of access needs, then that would take some work off us. And I guess a lot of it, you might hear a lot today, the old adage of walking in somebody else's shoes. Yes. And it really requires people to imagine what it's like stepping into the shoes or mobility aid of people with disabilities, to really think about how your life would be different, because it would be, from a lived experience. This is my life, this I've had to manage. And so I can understand it, but for other people who don't know people with disabilities, it's and we're all the same. We're unaware until we are. So it'd be really neat if everyone involved in shaping the bill could take a moment today, this week, whenever, to think about or imagine if I was disabled, physically disabled, had hearing loss, vision loss, intellectual disability, learning disability, or neurodiverse, choose a disability. There's lots of them. And just think about, how in my life right now, could I do what I'm doing right now, whether you're at work, going to the supermarket, going to order lunch? Could you do that? Could you do the next task on your list? Would you have read a text out loud on your computer if you needed that? And what resources would you need to do what you want to do next? And where would you access them? Because disabled people have to think about these questions daily, and we have to come up with the answers and find the resources. And when the resources aren't there, then we need to create a new solution. So if the bill can make access and equity the norm, imagine that. And I do, and that's what I imagine this could do for the disability community. And I feel like this is our opportunity, which is why I'm here today, speaking with you and being open to answer questions. Yeah. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Amanda. Great submission. And I really like your summary that you've given us here. Just, really succinct summary of the things that you want put in. And I'm just wanting to ask a little bit more about the dispute resolution process that you talked to us about. So my definition of dispute resolution is, two parties in a room managing a dispute. It seems like more of a mediated education process that you're really referring to. Did you want to just tease that out a little bit?
Yes, there's only so much that a bill can do, and we are up against society attitudes. So a lot of things fall down onto disabled people to start conversations. If we take something as simple as mobility parking, it's quite a challenge. I understand it's challenging because we don't want to make it penalties. We don't know if fines are the answer because the cost of living crisis at the moment, we don't want to add to people's burdens, and we all make decisions and sometimes they're not great. So that place where, say, if there's a place where we can report people parking mobility parks, that they might get a letter that says, hey, we've been informed that you've parked here. These parks are important because A, B, C. There's no penalty for this, but we just wanted to let you know why it's important not to park here. Your details are on file and we hope not to have to, something like that. That's just sort of off the top of my head. But
and if we have to send you another one, then there might be enforcement taking place or something.
Yeah. Just that sort of, I guess, for disabled people's support, to feel like we are not powerless, that we're not on our own. Because when you have conversations with people about, hey, you want to try on some clothes in the store, but your wheelchair accessible change room is full of stock, which happens very regularly.
Yeah.
At least you don't have any leg to stand on, which is terrible. I just say, yeah. So that space where we can, I guess it's advocacy, support, education, promotion of being accessible. Yeah.
Thank you. And I just had one other comment. So you'd asked the question, is there a minimum requirement or quota for social housing and accessibility? The minimum is 15%, but we are hoping to move that up to reflective of the population, to up to 25% as a minimum. And in fact, the best practice would be all houses are accessible, built to that standard. Do we have any other questions from anyone in the room? Yes.
Yeah.
Jan.
We've heard from at least one other submitter who put it in this kind of language, but I think the sentiment has been coming from others as well, is that there's no shortage of advice that has been given to government and other agencies, and that advice is not the problem, it's acting on the advice. Do you have any reflections on that, and whether that informs the changes you're recommending for the bill, as opposed to how it's drafted now?
Yes, because there are, as I've mentioned, there are a lot of organisations and committees that are really trying to create change, and change is slow, and this is a big piece of work. I don't come at it with an answer, unfortunately, because I only come at it from one perspective. So yes, and I think that is, from my point of view, why we would like more to feel a bit more support from the bill, that the government says all new builds have wider doorways, or these access things that actually could be built in, such as the healthy homes is the one that I use. And so not big and great things. I know it's difficult when you have existing older buildings and stairs, and but yeah, maybe that's sort of the resources for people that are willing to look at their physical spaces and how they operate and what they could do differently. So it's more sort of, I guess, making disabled people feel more empowered, but also providing support and guidelines for people that actually want to make things better, equitable. Yeah.
Well done. Thank you, Amanda. And you know, one of the comments that we know is retrofitting is incredibly expensive. We're building up front is the best option. Hey, we've come to the end of our time. Thank you so much, and for your submission. Really useful, really thoughtful, and some good examples to hang your what you've said off as well. So thank you for that. Appreciate you submitting in today, and hey, hope that you'll submit on other bills. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for addressing my question in my submission, because it really shows that you guys have actually read it, yeah, and you've come prepared. So I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You are more than welcome. Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Ka kite.
Ka kite.
So we are now at our last submitter, Elizabeth Perrone by Zoom. And just wait for Elizabeth to come into the room by Zoom.
Okay. Hello, I'm sorry. I'm very nervous, as you can probably tell.
Oh, don't worry, Elizabeth. Hey, it is really good to see you today. Thank you for coming in by Zoom. I'm Angie Warren-Clark. I'm the chair. We've got 10 minutes with you, but before that time starts, we're going to go around and introduce ourselves for those people watching or listening from home. So I'm Angie Warren-Clark. I'm the chair, and I'm a Labourist MP based in the Bay of Plenty. We have Liam sitting to my left. He's one of the clerks here.
And kia ora koutou, I'm Jan Logie. I'm the Green Party list MP, and wearing blue and kind of bronze polka dots in the room.
Yes, I'm black and white polka dots. My apologies.
Kia ora, Elizabeth. I'm Anahila. I'm Labour list MP based in Papakura. I'm in black and blue on Zoom.
And good morning, I'm Jackie Dean. It is good morning, yes.
Yes, just.
Yes, just National MP based in Waitaki. Good morning.
Kia ora, Elizabeth. I'm Rachel Boyack. I'm the MP for Nelson, and I'm wearing a pink dress, and I'm in my Nelson office on Zoom.
Morena. Morena to you, Elizabeth. So we've got you for 10 minutes. We've read your submission. It's your turn, your time to talk to us, to say whatever you want. And I understand as the mother of a disabled person that you'll be talking. So just be mindful around natural justice and the ability for your child to have the rights to natural justice. The other thing that I'd say is if you want to leave some time for questions, we'll probably have some for you, and I can let you know at about 5 minutes if you like. Looking forward to hearing from you. We're in your hands, and please don't be nervous. We don't bite, generally.
Thank you. So I have asked my child, I'm a full-time carer, I have asked their permission to include their story, if you like, and a part of our journey. So thank you for giving me the opportunity of speaking to you today on the Accessibility for New Zealanders Bill. And I have read all of this to my child, so there's no surprises for them.
Right.
One of the things that you learn as the parent of a disabled child is that a lot of life is dependent upon the goodwill of others, even when you are addressing someone in their professional area. Unless it is written in law, we cannot compel others to act in the best interest of our children or the disabled community. For instance, I know of no area in the medical arena where you have to prove and insist that you require a diagnosis. If it was an accident that had affected my child, then ACC would ensure there was a diagnosis, and this would then lead to treatment and support that far exceeds that which disabled people dream of. But since my daughter's disabilities do not relate to an accident, we are left in the position of finding thousands of dollars in order to get a diagnosis that will enable appropriate care being provided. In other words, if I was rich or my child had suffered an accident, then we would not be in our present position of being in fear of what would happen to our child in the event of our death, which I'm sure my husband and I, like the rest of you, cannot avoid. At present, an adult needing an assessment or diagnosis for autism must fund themselves. In our case, we were told that even if we could afford to go privately, it would not be appropriate because of complex medical issues. And so the hospital is the most appropriate organisation to approach. However, the hospital cannot because it is only applicable to paediatric cases. In order to access appropriate care, funding, finance, etc., there must be a diagnosis. But for us and many others, I am sure, that is not possible. A diagnosis means my child can, sorry.
It's okay, Elizabeth. You take as long as you need. It's okay.
A diagnosis means my child can start working towards a semi-independent life. To be able to live in a small flat and have people check that they are eating, taking medications, having help to shop, make appointments and attend those appointments, checking that they are safe and that their needs are met, cleaning, etc. is done, or to receive help to have it done. Accessibility in New Zealand means more than a ramp or doors wide enough for a wheelchair. And while these things are important, and I absolutely believe these things are essential, they are not the only areas that need addressing. Accessibility is needed, and it needs to be real and not just an idea or something hoped for. We need real help, real authority to back it up, and recourse if it's not provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Really great submission. You did not need to be nervous at all about that. And I just want to acknowledge that it is a difficult and emotional topic to talk about when you're talking about your own family and the impacts for them. So I appreciate you coming before us and being so very honest with us. So I do have a question. If there are any others in the room, that would be just indicate. So Angie, I keep forgetting that I must introduce myself. So what I'm particularly interested in, your conversation, I guess, equity between accident and being born with or acquiring due to, a physical, due to, something genetic, for example, occurring. I'm interested in that equity discussion and how you think this bill may be able to acknowledge and make space for all forms of disability and the accessibility to services. Is there something that you can see that we would need to do in this bill in order to achieve that?
I understand why we have ACC, and it's a really good plan, especially when we consider that some of that funding comes from businesses and there are high risk areas in which help provide that funding. There's a lot of issues around that. I understand that. But at present, being disabled is you're being penalised because it wasn't an accident, whether it was disease or you were born with it. Being penalised because you're disabled outside of an accident, it's repugnant. And when it's almost like we're abandoning whole sections of our society. If you're covered by ACC, you are covered. And I don't know what the solution is, but I know that it's up to you and I to be fair and just, because life isn't. That has to come from you and I. And I'm getting tired.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I guess the next part of that question is so the ACC scheme is set up, and you've talked about an adult, a 19-year-old, not being able to access a diagnosis through the public health system. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of understanding, is there a waiting list? What is the reason you're unable to access? I'm sorry, I don't quite understand.
It's okay. No. Okay, so this is a letter I received from our hospital, and it says, in the absence of any coexisting mental illness of sufficient severity to warrant specialist assessment, referrals for ASD assessment in adults without intellectual disability cannot be accommodated within our service. Currently, adult patients wishing to have a formal diagnosis will need to self-fund.
Right.
And that is from our hospital.
Okay, that makes that very clear. Thank you for that. I didn't quite understand how the system works. Thank you. Not something pleasant to hear, and certainly, you know, and I must say that unpleasant for me to hear, but for you, devastating, I'm sure, and your family.
And I also add into that, one of the reasons why many in the disabled community are unable to self-fund is because we don't have access to the supports we need.
Yeah.
So for me personally, as a parent, I couldn't work. I have been my child's full-time carer all their life. Yep. And we were fighting for their life for most of those years. So self-funding isn't an option for many of us.
Yes. And I think, you know, that is part of the picture, isn't it, of people with disabilities, living with disabilities, are more likely to be in poverty.
Yes. If you want a good outcome, we need to start early rather than late.
Absolutely. Are there any questions from anyone else? We're just about at time. No, there appear not to be. Elizabeth, thank you. A really great submission. I hope you don't feel so nervous next time you submit into something, and that this has not been too much of an ordeal for you. We have really appreciated hearing from you, and the authenticity that you bring to this process is so important. So thank you, and best of luck with things. We will see what we can do to make life better for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we come now to the private part. So if you can, ngā mihi nui kia koutou, ka
Just wanted
kite.
to come say hi, Jan, Angie. I've just been submitting next door, and so I just wanted to take the opportunity to, you know, tag in.
Thank you so much. Good to see you.
Well, I only got to page 1.5 of my submission, so you know. Oh, you saw it.
I've read it. Well, I didn't see it, but I read it.
Right, no, this is additional about the disrespect not only shown to disabled people by the bill, but also to the new Waikaha Ministry of Disabled People, because they should be the ones facilitating community-led design of the replacement bill that this will be doing. I will be doing a supplementary submission.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So if we can now move to private session. Thank you everyone for participating today.